Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Aadi Achint. Today I'm joined by a very experienced Indian Army officer who's been with the Army for a really long time, close to 38 years. He's a Lieutenant General Shankar, who's been the Director General of the Artillery for the Indian Army. He's an alumni of the National Defence Academy, of the Defence Services Staff College, of the Army War College, MAU, and a lot many other things. Thank you, sir, for joining me, and I'm honored to ask you some questions.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for calling me over. And a very good evening to you and all your followers and whoever are going to see this discussion of ours. Yeah,
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
looking forward to it.
So, my first question, sir, just to get a little bit of a basic understanding of why China is doing what it did, because
Yeah.
at the end of it, why India? It's got a lot of its own conflicts. Why India at this point of time? Why in Ladakh? Ladakh is not the easiest terrain in the world to fight a war in. So why did they do this?
Yeah, see, first and foremost, why India? Let's answer that.
Sir.
India is its regional competitor, right? Unless it becomes the sole power in Asia, it cannot dream of world domination, right? And by many metrics, in about 30-40 years' time, India's GDP is going to overtake that of China's in terms of population, GDP, everything. So you're a competitor, and you're a different competitor. He's an authoritarian state. You're a totally democratic state, and you are a religious state with a religious civilization. I might say this is not. This is a totally different setup. So he's very worried about you. So he has to stamp his authority on you. And this is part of that. Apart from everything, so why India is, and then you represent a huge market, right? And you see, there are other thing. Let me say, your power is tremendous. If you look around the world, you'll see. I'm not saying they're Indians, but they're people of Indian origin who are in positions of power, in governance, in major economies, USA, Ireland, Canada, just to name a few, right? So you don't find that equivalence in Chinese, do you?
Correct.
So there is a innate power in India which he wants to squash, right? Now the next thing is why Ladakh. He tried it out 2 years back in Doklam and didn't make headway, right?
Yes, sir.
And if he did anything in the east, it's a lone hand he has to do. Okay, and it has in a terrain which doesn't permit him to develop his complete combat potential. Whereas Ladakh offers that. Ladakh is more vast, it's open, it allows him to deploy his forces. One. Second, it allows him to get Pakistan on board, right, from the west. And there's more ambiguity. And there are certain disadvantages we had there. Plus, it gives him the depth for the CPEC, which goes through Xinjiang. So Ladakh was quite logical, right? It is the only place where you can deploy tanks in the Himalayas.
Yes, sir.
Nowhere else, except a small part of Sikkim. So that is why Ladakh. And of course, he felt that he has an advantage there. And this advantage was now. A couple of years down the line, if your border infrastructure goes up, and as it will, that advantage is gone. So he probably felt that he should get in there and stamp his authority.
Interesting, sir. That's a very different perspective apart from the road and the everything that everybody mentioned.
All that is there. We built the road, the the DPO road, all that. But the DPO road started 18 years back. He could have done it long back.
Correct. Right? Why not?
It is just that he saw an opportunity. Of course, he saw that virus had affected India. He probably miscalculated, thinking that the main armed forces were weak. All that is there. But the larger issue is something which I feel is important.
So well, we've been at it for almost 9 months now. it started in May, and the issues have been heated up. They've come calmed down quite a bit, then again heated up, then calmed down. It's been a seesaw of events. What do you think is the reason for this sudden breakthrough in talks? Because the talks have been happening for a long time at a very senior level in the Indian Army.
Yeah.
Suddenly, why they have decided to back away?
Firstly, I don't think it's a breakthrough, and it's not sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese had given some kind of a proposal way back in September, October. It's been developed over 7th, 8th rounds of, and ultimately it was we who took this decision that we should put him through winter, right? And we didn't want to. I suppose at this point of time, government of India and the co-commanders on ground and the co-commander on ground and the army headquarters, the army commander, confident that they'll be able to handle the situation and disengage the get de-escalate the situation. Right, through disengagement. That's how it is. I mean, that is why it's not a sudden breakthrough. It's just that I'll put it in a different, slightly different form. He's coming when he wanted. We're letting him go when we want.
Sure, sir. So, moving on, sir. Well, sir, you said that this is not really a breakthrough at this moment, and I kind of agree with you, but it was just the way that I want to ask this question. One of the reasons I kind of agree with you is because the recent incursion attempt that they undertook in Sikkim, and that's not very far back, that's just less than a month ago. So it gives us very contradictory signs as to one time in one place they're trying to open another front or expand the front or just focus, whatever it may be. What do you think is the reason?
Yeah, I have analyzed this in one of my articles.
Yes.
This incursion at Sikkim at Nakula. That's a probing incident. He's probed there, right? See, you have to understand the last action in Ladakh was we occupied the Kailash Range. Till the time we occupied the Kailash Range, the Chinese were not prepared to talk.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty high-handed and they flatly refused everything. The moment we occupied the Kailash Range, their tune changed.
Hmm.
They knew they were outwitted, outmaneuvered, right? And then they suddenly realized that look, India is pretty serious, and they had no bargaining chip left. Okay, and you see, what people don't realize is Kailash Range is not only about Malda Garrison. If you look beyond Malda Garrison, it opens the road to Rutong.
Correct.
Or Rudok, right? So suddenly, from a totally offensive orientation, PLA was into a defensive orientation.
Hmm.
No, without bargaining chips, Chinese won't talk. So they probed at Nakula. Can we get hold of a bargaining chip there? And Nakula has some very, fine issues to understand. It poses a indirect threat, and if that can be built upon through surreptitiously, it can play havoc into our system. And I've written about this in that article, the last article on the Sino logjam.
Yes, sir.
Right. It also puts you in a danger of getting all your troops in North Sikkim cut off. It's a very dicey option. They tried that. They found that we were alert and we stopped. So probably that's when 1 month later you suddenly see this, everything hunky dory and that kind of thing.
So strategically speaking, in Ladakh, what were the Chinese hoping to gain? I mean, people talk about a lot of these lines, 59 line, 60 line, and so on and so forth. But what exactly did they want?
See, the issue is very simple. It goes strategically. I don't know what, because they've never put it in black and white.
Hmm.
Right? It could be strategic dominance, global dominance, regional dominance, settling the LAC as per their perception. It could be giving India a tight slap on its face, telling everyone, regional signaling that I am the boss. There's so many issues. While Ladakh, we've answered. Yeah, in the whole process, if he can settle on a line of his choosing,
Why not?
which gives depth and puts the Indian army at a disadvantage, well, it's a low cost option.
Correct.
So that is why this whole story, right? And in the process, if he can get to a point where he can start monitoring the DBO road or interfering with the DBO road, it's better. So a lot of things rolled into this whole story. It's not a single strategy with which he has come. There's a lot of fallback. Anything can work. So that's the way I look at it.
Interesting. So there's no single reason why the Chinese are doing what they're doing.
No, I don't think so.
Very nice.
Right? And they thought, and it's of course some miscalculation.
So generally, the Chinese are pretty proud people about their race and so on and so forth. Uh, for the Chinese to go back from India twice in a row after Doklam and this one, they would need a face saver. I mean, they didn't even declare their casualties to the world. Uh, that just tells you the kind of closed society that they live in. So, what do you think is going to be the Chinese face saver in this entire incident, and how is it that they're going to spin it?
See, first and foremost, let me put my view. This is a total loss to them. Strategically, it's always been said that in an India-China face-off or an India-China war or a conflict, whatever you call it, a stalemate is a victory for India.
Hmm.
You achieved that, right? One. Number two, he he had the first mover advantage, surprise, and all that, and he came. He came up to a point, and he also drew a map
Hmm.
at finger four
Yes, sir.
and got it beamed through satellites all over the world
All over the
and
place.
said, "This is my territory." He's had to vacate that and go back. It's no more his territory, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's a huge loss. He has to have a face saver. What will his face saver be? The way I look at it, the two stories which will come out. The first is I want to focus on my first front or the front door, which is Taiwan
Taiwan.
and the South China Sea.
Hmm.
Ladakh is my rear door and the facing India is the lesser priority. With things hotting up in the South China Sea, I cannot handle both fronts. So we should focus on our first priority.
Hmm.
And that's what is there in all his documents, Taiwan. The core interest, China's core interest, one China, everything. If we focus on India, we will lose Taiwan, which is not acceptable. So that is the first thing. The second thing, you see, we inflicted all the damage on them, everything. And we are still holding on to Depsang. Depsang is his last card.
Yes.
How much it is a card is a moot point, we don't know. But he will have that fig leaf cover. And the third thing is, see, we now have an experienced army. Our army has gained operational experience. We are no more and an experienced India had to negotiate. We forced them to the negotiating table. He'll put a spin, right? These are the spins he can. But fundamentally, I think all these are weak, and everyone will now know that the Chinese have severe limitations.
So you also wrote an article where you talk about the Chinese desperately need a win, and
Yeah,
why is it
yeah.
the desperation part? I mean, I understand every country needs a win to kind of put its collar up, but you use this word desperation, desperately need a win. It's pretty interesting.
See, their desperation lies in the fact, say, let's take in the Sino-Indian context. After 1962, Look at 67 Natula, they got a bloody nose. Sundrancho outmaneuvered. Doklam, internationally acclaimed to be a stalemate and stop, block. Ladakh, done, right? I mean, before Ladakh, they want short this way. So this is in a Sino-Indian situation. If that doesn't work, then they're not going to get Nepal, they're going to not get Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar. A whole lot of things are connected. Next, look at their history. Their confrontation with USSR or Russia, today's Russia, earlier USSR,
yes, sir.
On the Ussuri River was a disaster for them. They lost.
Yes.
Miserably. Then the last campaign they fought was Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
They lost. They had tremendous casualties. Though they declared victory and went out, history says it's a loss. Okay. Then they've not been able to break out of their first island chain in the South China Sea. They're not able to get across Taiwan. It's very interesting if you see, USA comes 5 to 8,000 kilometers, sits on Chinese shorelines and conducts fun-offs with 2 US carriers. The moment a US carrier then comes into that area, it has already violated your sovereignty.
Correct, sir.
So here you have a superpower who's violating your sovereignty every 2 months by doing their fun-offs. And you're not able to do anything. What kind of a superpower are you? So you have to have some victory somewhere. Just sinking one bloody fishing boat of Vietnam or some stupid thing like that doesn't get you anything. Your real thing has to be, look, today the only 2 countries which can take on China are USA and India. There's no third country. And of course Russia.
Sir.
There's no fourth country, right? So it has to get a victory against one of these.
So in his perception, the weaker one.
Yeah. That's how you look at superpower rivalry, USSR versus USSR. Both strove for victory, direct or indirect or through proxy wars. Right? So ultimately, history has very clearly shown that USA sorted out USSR and emerged victorious, and that went to the demise of USSR.
Correct.
So in this case, also he needs a victory. If he doesn't get a victory against USSR, he has to get it against India. If he has to become a superpower.
Interesting. So talking about the message that the Raksha Mantri had put out in the parliament, with the whole mention of the fingers being, just like curry and rice today in the TV news. A lot of people who've not been there. I've been there as a tourist. I don't understand that area. I've seen the entire space, but I still can't relate to it when I look at it on a map. But having said that, looking at all the reports that are coming out, people are talking about the strategic advantage that we've got on the south bank as well as the north bank of Pangongtso. The question is that if we have such an advantage, why begin the talks in that particular area?
Look, we have this advantage and we'll retain this advantage forever. I mean, just because you vacated those areas, it doesn't mean your advantage is gone, first and foremost. Right. Let's look at the North Bank. In the North Bank, 6 months back, everyone kept saying, oh yeah, China wala aa gaya idhar, he will not go back. Why will he go back? He's dug everything, nothing. But he's gone back. He's gone back to his starting blocks. Okay. What have you lost there? You gained. Nothing. You are where you are. And that's the one which is most publicized. Galwan, he's lost. Okay. Now it's very clear that TASS has come out to say that they have lost 45 people.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, Americans said they lost about 35 to 70 people. Someone has said 90 people.
Yes, sir.
Uska pura like Fauji tarike se section average karo. So at least double or strength. So in a premeditated action, he's lost more casualties. That's gone. Now, as far as the Kailash range is concerned, a lot of people are saying, oh, we are losing our kryptonite and advantage and all that. Let's give it to the core commanders. If they've won that Kailash range for you, and today they are negotiating as a lever, I'm sure they have a fallback option, and they have an insurance, and they have the confidence of doing something not to lose it. After all, why are we questioning the very guys who got you that advantage when they are negotiating?
I absolutely agree with you, sir.
Right? So we should have confidence on those chaps. And that's because I've served there and I know something about it, I shouldn't waffle. Right? We don't know the ground situation. So let us this thing. So one. Number two, traditionally, I wouldn't say traditionally, long, it's not as if we're going to walk. We have never occupied the Kailash range. Some part of the Kailash range we've built defenses, and these defenses are ours from long, so those we'll occupy anyway in some form, right? Why should you keep so many people up there if you can retain control? So I'm sure we will find some method, right? In the worst case scenario, let the Chinese come and occupy it. No problems. That's your worry. But mountains, if your capability is there, you'll occupy something else and outflank it. Mountains gives you that mobility. Mountains eat up men.
Correct.
Cuts both ways. So if you have the capability, you can turn the tables like you did. After all, you did this in the face of the enemy.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
So you can do it again. So you have the capability. That capability he doesn't have. Right? He didn't do anything in mountains. He did whatever he did in plains.
Plains. Yes, sir.
The plains part of the mountains. So I think we shouldn't get too worried about what's happening. And I think a lot of people are unnecessarily hyping it up.
I look at it in a very simple way, and if I may just give my two cents into it. I look at it in a very simple way. The Kailash range occupation by us is an advantage over the Chinese. Correct?
Yeah,
You're overlooking the Moldo hut and stuff like that. Now, if the Chinese actually occupy that range, I mean, I'm sure they're not targeting their own network over there,
No,
which is the advantage it gives you.
No, it's like this. If they occupy, they look into the Chushul ball.
Yes, sir.
And the airfield there and all.
Yes.
It's not a great thing. But look, the way I look at it, that doesn't matter who occupies what.
Yes.
It's a capability. See, what has come out is the capability
of pushing someone.
Yeah, your capability is established. His capability is not. He's not fighting. And the past 6 months, what has one seen? He's not made a move to do anything. He can't. Because his quality of troops are not that great. And so I think we should, the confidence the corps commanders have and their capability, we should respect. Our corps command, two of them. After all, the earlier one and General Harinder and General Menon. Hats off to them. And to the army commander.
Correct, sir. Well, sir, talking about advantages, one of the biggest things people talk about is the Depsang. It is a plane, everybody can see everybody. And one can also see, I mean, just taking an example of that video that the Indian Army put out, which is of course, in Pangongtso, but the proximity of the tanks. And in that kind of a not plain sort of a region, so tanks are so close, I'm sure Depsang, the situation is a little more dire. Or, I mean, as we can read it sitting outside from that area. Do you think we have certain advantages in these kind of areas that obviously the public is not told about, and rightly so? I'm not wanting to discuss which particular advantage in which area.
I understand. But we see at this point of time we don't know, right, which advantage you have. But I'll take you on a tangent, a relevant tangent. You have the advantage of air. Depsang is an open billiard table. If you employ air there, they are virtually
null and void.
Null and void. And they don't have the air capability here. Okay. While people say Depsang is open and all that, there's that little pass out there where they're blocking us.
Yes.
Right? Equally, that will be a choke point for them also.
Correct, exactly.
So it's not as if
it's an open and
it's
shut case.
it's not an open and shut case. It's not a free pass for them.
Mm-hmm.
And one. Number two is you have to come to that level of conflict. Right now, you see, the next thing is beyond Depsang. What you lose Depsang, then you have to get to BBO and all that, and you lose BBO and things like that. And then what? You have to get back, get across Saserla, which is at 19,000 feet. You can't even breathe out there.
Yes, sir.
And that's when you get to Western Ladakh, the Siachen Valley. So it's a long drawn shot. For our guys who couldn't bloody fight, getting to that level is too much. And of course, like I said, the Air Force is also in the mix. And by then, the escalation will be so much that two nuclear powers don't go and headbutt against each other like this.
I think that's the underlining statement.
Yeah, you don't headbutt. Two bulls don't headbutt. They'll maneuver. This is all maneuvering going on.
Yes, sir.
Little advantage to be shown as something great and all. I don't visualize. In fact, long back when this happened, one of my first articles I said this whole thing will end at a negotiated settlement on a table, or it will be a manned LAC. It's coming there, and it might not be a manned LAC, but it might not be a free LAC also. It will be a semi-manned LAC.
There will be some changes.
Yeah, it will always be there. Yeah.
So, some people are also of the thought that the vacating of the Kailash range in the Pangongtso would be equivalent to us giving up the Hajipir Pass. What is your opinion on that?
I don't agree to that analogy fully.
Mm-hmm.
There is some logic in it. The difference was that when you gave up the Hajipir Pass, the Pakistanis could occupy it. Here, that won't happen. One. Number two, you are not going to fully vacate it. Like I told you, we have defenses there. So we're going to retain some control over it. Right. And the next thing is, if you see the Kailash range, it's a horseshoe.
Correct, sir.
Okay. It's a horseshoe. And the actual Kailash range, that Black Hill and that Magar Hill and Rezangla, Rechenla, form the U of the horseshoe.
Yes.
So you can penetrate that Kailash range anywhere and get into entrails. You need capability. You need mountain capability. Mountains offer you great mobility. People don't understand it. They don't offer you mechanical mobility, but they offer you foot mobility. Your maneuverability is very high in mountains. And for the Indian Army, which is taken Tiger Hill and Tololing against all odds.
Correct.
You go. It's not very tough. The Kailash range is not half as tough as Tiger Hill or Tololing. I've been to both places.
It's a smooth gradient, right, sir?
Yeah, this is a gentle gradient compared to
yes, sir. Compared to even the ridges on the Finger 4 area.
Yeah. No, Finger 4 is hardly anything. So, yeah, the higher reaches of Finger 4 are very difficult.
Yes.
And we've gone there. You virtually, they thought they had gone to a level in Finger 4 area to the higher reaches. And you outsmarted them and went and sat on top of them. Okay, and then, see, all this will play on their minds. To dented their confidence also. You will look at these fellows like monkeys, they're going everywhere. It inculcates fear. Please understand that if you can appear wherever you want at your will, then nothing worse than an enemy coming wherever he wants in your area.
It's like a magician in front of you then.
Yeah, you don't know where he's going to hit you. That capability you have put across. And he had his surveillance, he had his everything, whatever he wanted, he tried. And yet you did it on his face. So why can't you do it tomorrow? I don't think we should be unduly worried about this Hajipir business and all that.
I think one thing which I gather from your talk right now is that the maneuvering from the Chinese side was pretty much in the beginning, when the Indian forces were not fully there to kind of respond to them. But when we did maneuver into the areas, And constant maneuvering, by the way. We've not been sitting quiet
Yeah,
in
yeah,
one place. There's been just movement here and there. Even in Demchok, Chumar, we've heard certain heights have been taken there. Sikkim area, there's certain movement which has happened. Arunachal, there's certain movement which has happened. One actually sees that the Chinese have remained still in that in the said areas, whereas our army has been kind of
yeah. I agree with you. See, here, like I told you, we are a very experienced army. Okay, we have fought all our wars in mountains.
hmm,
What these chaps have not. After 62, they have not. Even in 62, if we had stood and fought, we would have.
I
Where we done the trick. Well, leave that out. If you analyze, the PLA has been road bound, track bound. They have not left the track. Even in Finger 4, Finger 5, they have not left it. Even in Moldo, that bowl, they have not left the track
they're on the road.
on the road. Even in Depsang, they've come only in places and they're looking at mechanization,
Hmm.
right? Where they've been stopped and mechanization has value of mechanization has finished. Their potency is done, and we have taken over.
Hmm.
Okay, so our capability is tremendous. I mean, it's a I would say a 30-year differential. I mean, everyone. I keep reminding you fought against all odds in Tiger Hill and Solo Lake. When the Pakistanis were firing at you, they were raining pretty hell into you through the artillery. Your Kargil ammunition dump they had blown at that point of
Yes.
time, right? They had interdicted NH1A, the road from Zojila to Leh,
Leh.
and you couldn't move unless at night or something, and restricted movement. And against all those odds, you threw them back. You think you can't throw the Chinese back? And there is a thing. All our units have been into almost all our infantry units and most of our artillery units have been into the Siachen glacier. And anyone who goes into the Siachen glacier has also served in the eastern Ladakh. And that's part of our training. First, they go and train in eastern Ladakh and then they go into Siachen glacier. So they know this area well. We are past masters at it.
So the Hawes
They're
plays a
capable.
big. The Hawes, which is the high altitude warfare school, does play a big role.
Yeah. It's not only horse. We have much more infrastructure.
Hmm.
Every corps has its battle school, which is peculiar to
Mountain
that
warfare.
particular corps. No, that corps and that terrain.
That's interesting, sir.
Horse gives you basic training, but actual battle schools. So every person, every unit which gets inducted into that area goes through like the CHN as a CHN battle school.
Yes, sir.
14 corps, 15 corps, and 16 corps have their own battle schools where a unit goes, does its training, pre-induction training it is called, and then it is deployed for battle.
Oh, okay.
So it is not horse is a, and if I compare the PLA I heard had got some Russians or Slavic guys and some Pakistanis to organize ad hoc one somewhere near Rootong.
Yes.
But I don't think they've been very successful at it. But this they did. There were reports that they bought someone and they were trying to, because you see, their troops are not experienced in this kind of altitude and weather conditions and terrain. So they had to get someone. And I'm surprised, that Pakis didn't tell them what kind of Indian troops we are. After all, they have been the recipients of their maximum kicks from us.
Yeah, of course, sir. Sir, do you think the upcoming summer would result in some more aggression from the Chinese? Are they retreating to regroup in any way?
Well, yeah, that's a normal worry which we will have. Let's put it this way. You have to look at it from a different perspective. This year is the centenary year of the PLA, or the CCP. They will not do anything this year. That's my thing.
Okay.
Because the risk of a loss is something very grave. And if that is a loss happens, during their centenary celebrations, Xi Jinping won't be in power.
Hmm.
So the risk of war, will they risk it? It's a big question. So I don't think personally they'll do it. And why are they quitting? If they had to risk something, why should they quit? They are already at a position. If they have to go back to figure eight and then come back, with this time we will not allow them to come back. Why
Hmm.
should they do it? So there's no question of regrouping. And like I said, they're more interested in Taiwan and South China Sea, where the stakes are higher. So they're right. I don't know whether they'll be they will be interested in coming back this summer. Will it rule out ahead? No. Do we have to trust them? No.
No.
Will it be the end of border friction? No. They will still try something or the other to keep the. Will they keep the kettle boiling?
Hmm.
Will they attempt salami slicing? They will. So let's not think that they're going to turn into doves. Remember, you have stymied them for the fourth time. It's a loss. It's a loss. And they have to do something back. But they might not do in a hurry. They'll bide their time. Everyone says they'll look at it in a long term perspective. The Chinese look long term. Let them look at long term. So we must expect something more. As our infrastructure goes up, that window keeps
Reducing.
reducing.
Interesting, sir. So my last question, and I'm going to ask you something which is about the core of your experience in the Indian Army, which is the gunnery. Uh, what do you think is the future of indigenization in Indian artillery today? And where are we now, and how far do we have to go?
Yeah. Uh, I think amongst all and services, today Indian artillery is the most indigenous, right? And maybe Navy to some extent. Navy they make the ships, but nothing else. The kitting of the ship is from abroad.
Yes, sir.
The guns, the systems. We have done everything. So it's the most indigenized. You take missiles, we have our own, whether it's BrahMos or Pinaka or Grad. Grad is today our own,
Yes.
right? You have your own electronic battlefield surveillance systems. In the weapon locating radars you make on your own. Uh, we have our own networks, fire control networks, the battlefield surveillance systems, and the artillery combat command and control systems. Your network, right? You have no problems of ammunition. All ammunition today is made in India.
Hmm.
You don't have to rely on anything from abroad. You have your own guns. Uh, there's some issues with this Dhanush and attacks and all that, but I'm sure they will resolve. You have your own guns. Even the guns which you brought from outside are assembled in India and indigenized. For example, the M777, the ultralight howitzer which we bought from USA. The parts are made today in India
Hmm.
with titanium. Yeah, that's part of the deal. So you don't have to depend on USA for spares. In fact, it's the other way around. USA will start depending on us for their fleet for spares. So you have gone a long way in indigenization. Uh, and when you say indigenization, it's just not production. We have now the technology.
Hmm.
It is our technology. And mind you, once upon a time, at the turn of independence, we were largely a British artillery,
Yes, sir.
right? Later, we swung to becoming a Russian artillery. When I say Russian, a Russian-based artillery.
Hmm.
We are now neither British nor Russian nor US. We are an Indian artillery.
Hmm.
Own. Where do you go from here? In the future, the era of the guns are over. Era of making a bigger, longer, heavier gun with longer range is over. You know, research and development has to be in the field of ammunition, and reach longer range. In this context, let me put it, I have written about this also. You should have the ability to reach along the Chinese border with your artillery well up to his western and eastern express highways. That is that that G219 and
Yes,
all
sir.
that. From anywhere our side, we should be able to reach that, and that is when you'll deter him. So you need to have an artillery which has deterrence value, extra range through missiles, through better ammunition, through better mobility, and we have it. I'm sure down the line we will have more.
That's his Achilles heel, if I may say so, sir.
Uh, so yeah, see, it's not his Achilles heel, but the fact is that the moment you know that you can hit him there, you are doing you are doing conventional deterrence by conventional methods, and you deny that space. The moment you know you can reach there, that space for him to use is denied. Today, you're not able to do that. You can do it partially, but I would like to see more. The day he would do that, he will not come here. Why should you fight on Kailash Range and Pangongtso when you can, fight in his death?
Correct, sir. You can threaten his death.
So that the near threat is deterred.
Interesting.
That is where we have to go forward.
That's a very different perspective than what you hear and read in the so-called mainstream media today.
Yeah, we need to modernize our thinking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I must say, sir, this whole conversation, I've, of course, being interested in this whole field, I've, on my own and with my father's help and some friends here and there, been able to decipher certain locations, although may not be fully accurate, but with the current understanding that people actually propagate on our television sets, and what we've discussed today is a completely different angle. I must say that is given a totally new perspective to even me. I being a very small pawn in this whole game, but it's given a very different perspective as to what the strengths of the country are, and as to the fact that we must not jump the gun as of now, because the men on the field are the guys who are pretty much empowered. They are smart enough, and they are the ones who gave us the advantage in the first place.
Yeah. Let me put another parting shot to you.
Sir.
You see, everyone talks of modernization and modern armies. And a lot of international commentary that Indian army fights conventionally, old methods and all that. Yeah, that's fine. What we don't realize is that the Himalayas are old, the terrain is old. That's not changed. You have to fight. You can't fight the terrain with modern systems.
Yeah.
And you see, you just look at it. People climb Mount Everest still. Why? Because you're fighting nature there.
Yes, sir.
Right? And you don't go up mechanically to Mount Everest. You still have to do it the hard way. Same thing here. No amount of modernization will beat Himalayas. It's the man and his will to survive.
I think that's where the Indian Army triumphs also.
Yeah.
And it's been doing so.
I'm very proud of it.
Absolutely, sir. I think all of us are. As a matter of fact, it has been doing so ever since our independence, and all of us as citizens must be thankful for it.
Yeah.
That we have such a strong and such a straightforward army.
Yeah, I won't leave the Air Force and the.
No, when I say army, it is the armed forces of the country. So
yeah, we are the best armed forces.
I think the armed forces together have done a brilliant job till now, and the way that we've come up to the situation, the responses and the confidence that it gave the country, minus the few naysayers, it is incredible. And I
agree with you.
I don't see any other army in the world which has the kind of respect from its own citizens. We may not display it, but it's there in pretty much everybody's heart. Thank you so much for joining me today, sir. It
Yeah,
was
welcome.
indeed a very, very interesting conversation, and I'd like to request you for little more time to kind of build upon this conversation as and when the details come out, and as and when we are able to establish what the actual situation is. It'll be
Sure.
really interesting to hear your point of view, which has been very different, and I'm sure all the people that are going to watch this video are going to benefit quite a bit, sir.
Thanks. And thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure talking.
Thank you, sir.
And
have a good evening.
we will talk further.
Yes,
Good
sir.
evening.
Absolutely.
Bye.
It'll be a pleasure.